Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. March was a very wet month across much of the UK, but in recent days it has turned a good deal drier. So does that set the theme as we head through the first half of April, or will the rain be returning? As usual, I'll start by taking a look at the view across Europe and the North Atlantic. The animation runs from 18 GMT, Tuesday the 4th. At the outset, it's dry in much of the UK, but not everywhere. In the northwest, there are some outbreaks of rain, and the yellow shading indicates that they could be heavy. As I run the animation, the rain moves southeastwards across all areas. It clears for Good Friday, although there could still be some showers in eastern England. High pressure builds into the Easter weekend. Lots of dry weather around. But into Bank Holiday Monday, 6 a.m, it's looking very iffy. Heavy rain is pushing across Scotland, Northern Ireland, into Wales and close to southwestern England. But by this point, there is uncertainty about the details, the timing of any rain. Will it be a little bit later arriving or a little earlier? A big impact, of course, on the bank holiday prospects. On this particular sequence, though, the rain indeed moves southeastwards across all regions. It then turns dry for Tuesday as a ridge of high pressure builds. But by Wednesday, there is a very, very nasty looking area of low pressure sitting in the Atlantic. Weather fronts associated with it just beginning to encroach on the UK. The potential there for heavy rain in the days which follow. Strong winds would be a possibility too. What's driving all that? The jet stream, to begin with, it's weak and disorganised close to the UK. But as I run this, what we see is the yellows, oranges and reds to the west through the middle part of the period start indicating the jet stream getting its act together. And through the second half of the week, it pushes across the southern half of the UK. Not the ideal location if it's drier and warmer weather that you're hoping for. For that, you would be looking for it to go up towards Iceland, leaving the UK on its warmer southern side. I think there will be a lot of people interested in the Easter period, so I just wanted to look at it in a little bit more depth. The charts here are generated using data from the UK Met Office UKV model, and they are for Good Friday. On the left is precipitation, on the right temperatures. There are a few showers there being shown in eastern England, but it's a mostly dry picture. Also, there's a reasonable amount of brightness being forecast. The white shading on the left-hand chart there indicates cloud cover, and you can see it's quite speckled, so hopefully a reasonable amount of sunny intervals. Temperatures, not too bad there in the afternoon. These are forecast maximums, around 10 or 11 in the north, 13, 14 in the south. Worth highlighting though that it could well be quite a cold start to the day, a patchy frost in places. Moving forwards to Saturday, very, very similar. A few showers there in central and eastern counties, mainly dry though, temperatures more or less unchanged. By Sunday, and here I'm using data from the UK Met Office global model, so it's a little bit different. The basic picture, though, is consistent. A little patchy rain there being shown in Northern Ireland, showery rain, but for the vast bulk of the United Kingdom, it's dry. Temperatures not at all bad either, 14s or 15s by this point. Bank Holiday Monday, Easter Monday. If you remember, the GFS had the outbreaks of rain pushing southeastwards across all parts of the UK through the day. This doesn't look terribly different, I'm afraid to say. It's at midday, rain over Scotland, Wales, the southwest, clearing in Northern Ireland, so perhaps turning more showery there. But in the hours which followed, it could well be putting a spoiler on things in central and southeastern parts of England. Just worth though highlighting that ahead of this rain, if it does hold off long enough, it could feel quite warm. Maximum temperatures there on the right-hand side chart shown at around 16 Celsius in the London area. I think, therefore, Good Friday, Saturday and Easter Sunday is fairly well defined, mostly dry for showers in central and eastern counties on Good Friday and Saturday. Sunday, hopefully dry in much of the UK, but the uncertainty increases significantly by Bank Holiday Monday. If you've got anything planned, my advice would be to keep an eye on the short-range weather forecasts. Is there still a risk of frost through the first week? In a word, yes there is in all parts of the UK. The chart on the left here is from the GFS. It shows forecast minimums on Friday, so Good Friday, just a couple of degrees above freezing quite widely, even in the south there, so a ground frost possible, and in the north temperatures dipping down to or just a little bit below freezing point. The chart on the right is an interesting one because it's generated using data from the high-resolution UKV model. Again, and the reason I've brought it up is because it shows the London urban heat island very nicely. You can see inside the red circle, which is really the greater London area, temperatures are a couple of degrees higher than in the surrounding area. It's just worth bearing this in mind because particularly at this time of year, as the frost risk starts to decrease generally, it will be decreasing more rapidly in the big urban areas than in rural places. So on some nights, London may well be escaping the frost, but in the home counties, you've only got to go out 15, 20 miles from the city itself, and temperatures will be low enough for frost still to be forming. Taking a look at the Mogrep's temperature profile through the first week in the Easter period. I'm using the Berkhamsted plot here rather than London as a pointer for southern Britain, really just to back up that point about the urban heat island effect of London, because once we get out to Berkhamsted in the Chilterns, into the home counties, it fades away, and consequently some of the overnight lows are a couple of degrees down on the London values, indicating that greater risk of ground frost as we go through the first week out of town. The Easter period itself, though, daytimes not too bad at all. It's really by Easter Monday that the uncertainty starts to rise. Will that rain arrive and put a downer on things, or will it hold off? If it does, then it may well feel quite mild or even warm in the afternoon ahead of that area of rain. Looking at the rainfall picture in aggregate, the charts here are for days 0 to 5, ECM on the left, GFS on the right. Some rain in all parts of the UK, so this goes out to midnight on Saturday. We're not covering Easter Monday yet. The rain totals here are really associated with that first weather front which pushes through on Wednesday and into Thursday. Wettest really in the northern half of the UK, but even in the southeast, measurable amounts. Going forwards to the 0 to 10 day period, the totals have increased everywhere, indicating that there is likely to be some rain around from that disturbance through Easter Monday, perhaps Tuesday. The timing, as I say, is open to debate, still at least to an extent, and then perhaps a little bit more rain in the days which follow. Of course, it's a more uncertain theme which is developing after that, with the GFS showing that nasty area of low pressure forming in the Atlantic. Is that general scenario backed up by the other deterministic models? Well, here is the GFS, just to recap. Tuesday the 11th, low pressure is pulling away, there's that weak ridge of high pressure, and then another area of low pressure beginning to form there to the west. That was the one which goes on to be a very nasty feature in the days which follow. The Canadian model, at the same time though, has high pressure having more influence across the southern and central regions. There is a little area of low pressure here which could be quite nasty in the northwest. The German icon, an Atlantic flow pushing across all regions, so quite changeable, high pressure a little bit further south. The European ECM, conversely, has high pressure further north, quite different to some of the others there, with a more settled looking picture. And finally, the UK Met Office Global, probably closer to the ECM than the GFS and the ICON, with the high pressure being influential. Taking them all together, it's quite difficult to draw too many conclusions, but I think wetter in the north, a greater chance of dry periods continuing in southern and central regions. The extent of that changeable or unsettled feet pattern, how far south will it be pushing, is questionable at this stage. I think there will be some rain for all regions, but in the south it could well be that weather fronts are weakening as they reach that part of the UK, with high pressure continuing to be more of a feature. Temperatures, probably nothing special, but there is that possibility, as I've been discussing, for some chilly nights in the afternoon, so not too bad when sunny spells develop. With that mixed end to week one, how are things looking as we go through the second week? Trends and probabilities, of course, at this range, nothing more. The London GEFS Ensemble chart for going out 16 days. Week two, air temperatures across the top are shown, and they look to be close to average throughout. The thick purple line, the ensemble mean, staying close to the thick black line, the 30-year norm. There is quite a spread there, with some runs going above and some below, but they're all averaging out, so it's probably quite a mixed scenario. Interestingly, looking at the rain spikes along the bottom, there's an ongoing risk of rain according to this. Quite a few of those spikes are showing up throughout the second week. So after that drier start for much of week one, there are suggestions here of a more changeable pattern developing through week two. Could be offering some support to that GFS operational run, which the animation was based on, and had the nasty area of low pressure to the west of the UK. Most of these ensemble runs probably not going for anything as extreme as that in terms of developing the low pressure, but an Atlantic flow looks more likely to be returning through this period. Looking at the 2 metre temperature data table for London, mostly light yellow in the columns to start off with. Those are runs going for between 11 and 15 Celsius. Later on, there's a little bit of light green, or at least there's more than there was through the first few days. Those are 6 to 10 Celsius, so cooler runs, but also at the other end of the scale, the amount of yellowy orange grows. Those are runs going for 16 to 20 Celsius. So a more uncertain picture in terms of temperatures later on, but close to or above average is being favoured through the days. Up to Manchester, very, very similar in terms of the air temperature profile. Also the precipitation chart across the bottom there, a risk of rain which is ongoing. There are perhaps fewer spikes there towards the very end. Difficult to be too confident about that though. The basic message is an ongoing chance of rain. The 2 metre temperature data table for Manchester, a little bit cooler looking than the London one, but the same profile really, mostly yellows for the first few days. More light green than there was on the London chart, but that's actually decreasing as we go forwards, and the yellowy oranges are starting to appear, but temperature's not really a big factor here, at least not through the days. Up to Glasgow to see what's going on in the northwest of the UK. Once more, the air temperature profile is very similar, close to the norm, and the number of rain spikes there a little bit higher than on the Manchester and London plots, so quite a wet picture is being shown on this chart. But looking at all those together, the same story is being told. The chance of more changeable weather increases as we go into the second week. The 2 metre temperature data table for Glasgow, light greens through the first few days, and the amount of yellows is increasing. Similar pattern to the others really, but just at a little bit of a lower level, cooler as we're heading northwards across the UK, but temperature's not a big player really, at least for daytime ones. Will the risk of frost, though, be continuing through the second week? This is more important, I think, in terms of temperatures. In a word, the answer is yes, it will. This is showing forecast minimums for Berkhamsted. Again, I've jumped out of London to escape for night time. Urban heat island effect. The dark greens are showing runs which are forecasting minimums of between 1 and 5 Celsius. Quite a few of those would be cool enough to bring ground frost. There isn't any blue on this chart, so nothing dipping down below freezing point. For ground frost, temperatures can be several degrees above it for it still to form. The 10-day surface level pressure plot mean from the GEFS model indicates quite a changeable scenario across the UK. High pressure to the southwest over the Azores, just perhaps bumping up at times to have a little bit of influence, but all in all, it's quite keen on an Atlantic flow, bringing a changeable pattern across all regions. The ECM, at the same time, high pressure on this, maybe having more influence. The changeable conditions, more focused on the northern half of the UK, and it just really does highlight some uncertainty about how changeable or unsettled things will become through this period. Once again, though, I think the message is a greater chance of showers along the spells of rain as you go northwards. The mean surface level pressure data table for York, generated using data from the GFS. Later on, the amount of orange increases, quite notably. Those are runs going for higher pressure, 1,026 to 1,040 millibars. They would suggest a growing chance of drier weather, but it wasn't really being backed up by the number of rain spikes on those plots, which I showed a little bit earlier. Perhaps there were fewer towards the end, as I think I mentioned on the Manchester one, but it wasn't very clear. Really, this is something to keep an eye on. I wouldn't pay too much attention to it just yet, but if it's right, there are some indications that high pressure will be becoming more influential again as we head towards the middle of April. So, to summarise, week 1, rain clears eastwards early on. There could then be some showers on Good Friday and Easter Saturday in eastern England, but it's mainly dry. That picture continues on Easter Sunday, dry across most of the UK, but by Easter Monday, forecast confidence starts to fall. It looks like a band of rain will be pushing eastwards. Whether or not it makes it down into central and southeastern England through Easter Monday is debatable, so keep up to date with the short-range forecasts. That clears away and a ridge of high pressure then builds on Tuesday, but at the very end of week 1, there are indications of a transition back to a more unsettled or changeable scenario. Temperatures in the afternoon sunshine, when it develops, should be reasonable, but the nights remain chilly and there is that frost risk on some of them. Week 2, changeable, probably with showers or longer spells of rain, but there should be dry periods as well, particularly in southern and central counties. The risk of frost doesn't go away, particularly in the north and in rural areas. So, there we have it. Quite a mixed bag of weather on the whole. The Easter period, well, Good Friday and Saturday bring showers to central and eastern counties, but many places should be dry. That predominantly dry theme continues on Sunday, but question marks for Monday. The threat of rain moving in from the west. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. As ever, then if you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thank you for watching now. Bye.